Every year there's a silly debate on whether or not Kevin McCallister from Home Alone 1 and 2 can stop or defeat Ghostface from the Scream franchise. Home Alone is my favorite Christmas movie, well, right behind Gremlins, and 'tis the season. So here's why Kevin McCallister vs Ghostface is not close. Yep, taking this seriously. Okay. There's a few different ways this can play out, so let's set the stage. Ghostface is a bit tricky to pinpoint an exact level of strength and or intelligence, since there's been 12 different Ghostfaces and like 17 if you count the MTV series. They range from a silly, goofy guy slipping and falling all the time to a more traditional, menacing slasher type, ranging from being smart enough to fake their own deaths to throw off suspicion, to being so stupid that they stab themselves nearly to death before killing the final girl. So let's take them at their consistent peaks. As for gear, the Ghostface killers have their signature costume, a white mask they can barely see out of, and a robe they can barely run in, and a voice changer which gives anyone who uses it the sexy Ghostface voice, or any voice at all if going off of Scream 3. For offense and defense, they carry a few 8-inch hunting knives to cut, slash, stab, and gut people, as well as a bulletproof vest that does exactly what you'd expect. It's able to fully stop all handguns we've seen, although he did have to get out of the way of a shotgun blast, so I'm sure the limit is somewhere in between. Bulletproof vests don't completely stop the force of a bullet, so a shot can still knock someone on their ass, but they're typically still able to disappear right before getting caught, or use it as a ploy to getting close to the shooter. Or in Roman's case, he was completely unaffected by every shot he took to the chest and was only stopped by a bullet to the head. Good time to talk about their physicals. They aren't nearly on the level of the typical big strong killers we're used to, the Jasons and the Michaels, but they still have some pretty impressive showings. They can bust down barricaded doors, stomp on and break legs, lift people with a single hand, and even throw people around. Nothing supernatural, but they are portrayed as pretty strong. Even a weakened Jill, who had just beat the piss out of herself nearly to death, after quote-unquote killing Sydney, mind you, was still tossing Sid around like she was Rey Mysterio. So I'd put them right above your average human in terms of strength and durability. The almighty nutshot will still drop them though. Their speed and stealth is a lot more impressive. Their on-screen running speed is pretty average, I'd say. Some people barely getting away while others get hawked down, but they quickly disappear and reappear when the camera isn't on them to the point that it looks like teleportation at times. But we know they don't have any superpowers, so they're just running really fast while completely silent. And they tend to end up exactly where they need to be, ambushing unsuspecting victims at the right place at the right time, like someone's closet or a bathroom stall. And one last detail to point out is that there are usually 2 Ghostface killers at a time. There was 1 in Scream 3 and 3 in Scream 6, so 2 on average. Overall, Ghostface should be a formidable threat to Kevin and a few steps up from the wet/sticky bandits from the movies. Let's get the obvious scenario out of the way. A straight up 1v1 fight between any of the Ghostfaces and Kevin would not look good for the 8 or 10-year-old kid. Big shocker? I know. Whether it's a fist fight or you give both parties their usual kits, so a knife and maybe a BB gun respectively. Okay, let's get to it. Ghostface replaces the robbers in Home Alone 1, then Home Alone 2. In Home Alone 1, Kevin is an 8-year-old kid. Pretty good shot with the BB gun, and in the next movie we see that he can hit a deadly headshot with a brick from a couple stories up. He's also extremely perceptive and intuitive, noticing Harry snooping through his window from a Christmas ornament and getting the feeling something was wrong with Harry and Marv before they even came to rob his house. And of course, he's a f***ing genius. I was barely making Legos at 8 years old, and this kid's making life-size shadow shows with mannequins, cutouts, and a bunch of string. He's not exceptionally strong or fast, but I don't see him getting snuck up on completely out of nowhere. So are his traps enough to stop Ghostface? No. Well, probably not. Maybe. Let's take a look. Ghostface tends to go after multiple people on their way to get to their main target, who for some reason is a kid in elementary school in this scenario. Let's not think about it too hard. Since his whole family's gone, that leaves the residents of the upper-class Chicago suburbs as Ghostface's victims. The would-be robbers, the cashier lady, the fake Santa, even the old man. Him being an especially important kill since he saves Kevin in the end. We'll get to that later. So bar for bar, the traps. Slippery floor, iron attached to string, tar on the stairs, and nail in the floorboard would at best inconvenience Ghosty, while the nail and iron would most likely not get him at all. I could see the hot handle and the flamethrower attached to the door lighting his hood on fire, but they aren't nearly lethal enough to be anything more than yet another inconvenience. Same with the feather fan. The glass ornaments on the floor are completely reliant on someone jumping through that specific window, with their shoes off. Kevin has some pretty grade A predictions, but I don't see the tar trap working on them the way it worked on Marv. Ghostface is usually pretty tunnel visioned while chasing someone, so they're susceptible to being knocked around and falling over. So the Hot Wheels on the ground might work, maybe not, kinda whatever regardless. I do however see the paint cans to the face knocking Ghostface down. This is the movie's deadliest trap, and could definitely knock someone out, maybe even kill someone, but Ghostface has taken a fair share of punishment and bounced back, even seemingly fatal injuries to get their final scare in. Stabbings, gunshots, car crashes, electrocution, and even being lit on fire. The paint can will drop them, but they shrug it off the way Harry and Marv did. The tripwire would definitely get them though, but Kevin did get grabbed by Marv here, only saved by Buzz's tarantula and Marv's arachnophobia. Swap him for Ghostface and Kevin is not getting getting away. Score 1 for Ghostface. But let's entertain this idea and say it does work. Kevin ziplines to his treehouse and Ghostface follows him to the window. No one in their right mind is taking the rope. If Ghostface catches Kevin in the second house, which Harry and Marv do, Kevin is toast. Another aspect I haven't mentioned is how they utilize 2 Ghostfaces. Aside from Scream 6, which had 3, the 2 are never both dressed up chasing the same person at the same time. If Kevin is a stand-in for the final girl, one Ghostface would be ready for him inside the house somewhere, while the other went through the traps. If not, they would have definitely already sniffed out the zipline escape and caught him in the treehouse. Ghostface wins Home Alone 1. But what about Home Alone 2? Let's say the events of the first movie play out the way they normally do, and the wet bandits don't escape prison, or they just get killed in our new Home Alone 2. Kevin is now 10 years old, stranded in New York while his family's in Miami. The movie starts off relatively the same. Kevin tours around NYC, gets a hotel room, lives it up, then gets kicked out. In this scenario, let's say Kevin catches Ghostface killing someone, then removing his or their masks, so they have no choice but to follow him into the trap house to kill him. In this version, Ghostface kills the hotel workers, wet bandits, toy store guy, and the pigeon lady. Bar for bar, part 2. The teeter-totter is not catching him. A brick to the head might do him in, but Harry dodged them all, so I'd imagine Ghosty could too. Another door handle trap, slippery ladder, and a gaping hole in the ground would most likely not catch him. Absolutely no peripheral vision. More silly shenanigans barely worth mentioning. One of the deadlier traps does come into play here. Kevin's psycho ass attaches jumper cables to a sink. Let's humor the idea and say Ghostface does use the sink to wash off. He gets zapped immediately. It'd certainly be enough to down him for a while, but we've seen a Ghostface killer come back from something similar, when Jill took a cranked up defibrillator to the head. It knocked her out, but she survived and got up a few seconds later. So I'd imagine something similar would happen here. Rope out of the basement is an obvious trap, not falling for it, but the deadliest trap by far is the kerosene toilet. Harry gets his head toasted again, and seemingly the only way to put it out is by dunking his head in a toilet. This creates a huge explosion, one that Ghostface would probably not survive. The question is, would he dunk his head in the toilet in the first place? My bet is probably not, but on the off chance that he does, that's a point for Kevin. They'd be caught off guard by the slightly sawed ladder since Kevin had just used it right before them, and since this is their first time against Kevin in this scenario, they'd fall for the paint cans and the metal beam. Toolbox falling down the stairs for like 30 whole seconds, 0 survival skills. They just sat there and listened to it fall. And another zipline situation with the rope following Kevin, Ghostface has a tendency to disappear from sight and reappear. He'd surely opt for slinking back into the building and catching Kevin later on. And once again, despite every single trap he laid out for 2 idiots, they still caught up to him and he still had to be saved by an old lady. Without her, he dies right here in the park. Ghostface wins round 2. Admittedly though, the bandits were caught soon after their run-ins with the old people, so if the old man and lady were to survive until the end of the movie, I could see them buying Kevin enough time to escape. But I don't see either surviving a head-to-head with 2 Ghostfaces. That's also assuming the cartoon hijinks work and buy Kevin himself enough time before being caught by the killers, which, I don't think so. There's a combined like 5 out of 25 traps that would work as intended the way they work in the movies, the kerosene trap being the only reliable way to kill one of the 2 Ghostfaces. Even in the case that Kevin gets away and the cops come to the rescue, Ghostface has always been able to get away, and the only way to keep him down is by killing him. If this was the case, then Ghostface would definitely come back for the final act with the whole family around, but now we're delving into fanfiction territory. Okay, this whole thing's been pretty fanfiction-y. Kevin's a little badass, but Ghostface wins more times than not. Merry Christmas and happy holidays and all that. Thanks for watching this Christmas special. Thumbnail by Something in the World. His Twitter's down in the description, as per usual. He made this pretty last minute for me, so thanks a lot, man. I think there's a solid disconnect between the seriousness of the Scream movies and that of Home Alone. Scream's a bit sillier for horror movie standards, but Home Alone is sending dudes into the air with teeter-totters. They're surviving things no person should survive, just general wackiness. But hey, if you disagree, feel free to leave a comment. Next video is another ranking, this time on the Marvel Rivals roster. Subscribe to see when that one's out, and I'll see you guys later.